Hands up! I'm gonna fucking shoot you! I'm gonna fucking shoot you! Show me your fucking hands! Show me your fucking hands! I'm gonna fucking shoot you! I'm gonna fucking shoot you, motherfucker! Get your hands up! Get your fucking hands up!
At 6:14 a.m., Texas highways turned into deadly corridors. A pickup truck racing at nearly 150 miles per hour wasn't just fleeing police. It was carrying human lives packed so tightly that, within seconds, they would have suffocated. Behind these chases was a coordinated system that used American children as shields, human lives as cargo, and public office as protection. What unfolded over the next few hours would expose a hidden power structure operating from within the state itself. At 6:14 a.m., as the Texas sunrise barely touched the highway, chaos exploded. A silver pickup tore across 3 lanes at nearly 150 miles per hour as troopers closed in. The driver clipped a guardrail, debris flying, before a DPS unit executed a clean PIT maneuver, sending the truck spinning into a cloud of dust. But the shock came when the doors opened. 23 migrants crammed into the sleeper cab, gasping for air, seconds away from suffocating had the truck rolled. What stunned investigators wasn't just the chaos on the highway. It was who sat behind the wheel. Again and again, troopers pulled out drivers who were barely teenagers, 12, 13, and 15-year-old kids, trembling but trained to run like seasoned smugglers. Recruited on TikTok and Snapchat with promises of $5,000 a run, they were told the law couldn't touch them because of their age. Each arrest exposed more. Routing notes, payout screenshots, GPS logs, every trail pointing to a single command hub coordinating dozens of these child convoys. It was no longer just cartel exploitation. It was systemic, organized, and terrifyingly effective. Children were used as drivers. If that makes you angry and believe this should never happen on American highways, comment "Protect Kids" and keep watching. As investigators pieced together the data pulled from seized phones, burner tablets, and GPS relays, a chilling pattern emerged. More than 87 separate smuggling routes worth an estimated $320 million, all traced back to a single orchestrator, Lieutenant Governor Robert L. Ashcroft, age 47. His name appeared in encrypted ledgers, warehouse access logs, and even in the payout lists used to recruit teenage drivers. The shock was immediate. The second highest elected official in Texas was allegedly directing shipments tied to CJNG, including fentanyl caches large enough to poison over 14 million people. Financial transfers, shell companies, and coded messages connected every highway bus to his office. This wasn't corruption. It was a parallel government built on drugs, violence, and trafficking. Just after 4:58 a.m., federal tactical units surrounded Robert L. Ashcroft's secluded Texas estate, a sprawling mansion that looked peaceful from the road but hid something far darker inside. Thermal drones revealed over 60 armed mercenaries positioned throughout the property, guarding the lieutenant governor like a cartel kingpin. Armored agents pushed through the front entry as suppressed rifles cracked from the upper balcony. DHS operators flanked the east wing, lobbing flashbangs that rattled the windows and disoriented the mercenary line. For 12 relentless minutes, the firefight raged room to room. Bullet impacts shredded plaster walls, smoke crawled across the marble floors, and alarms wailed through the mansion. Yet the federal advance never slowed. By 5:10 a.m., the estate was secured. Ashcroft was found hiding inside a fortified panic room, dragged out in cuffs as agents uncovered a vault of narcotics, classified files, and military-grade weapons. Outside, the backyard pond concealed something far worse: 52 human remains, buried in silence beneath his personal sanctuary. This was no longer an arrest. This was a takedown. If you want the full truth exposed, comment "exposed." Once Ashcroft was in custody, FBI forensics teams moved fast, pulling hard drives, decoding encrypted folders, and interrogating the 60 mercenaries captured inside the compound. What they uncovered was staggering. Ashcroft had spent nearly 8 years running a shadow criminal empire valued at over $2.4 billion, using his political office as a shield. Records detailed coordinated drug shipments with CJNG, targeted killings of rival traffickers, and a brutal pattern of human trafficking across 4 states. Even more disturbing was his use of American children as disposable couriers, paid small sums to drive lethal cargo to avoid adult prison sentences. Hidden ledgers mapped dozens of recruitment hubs, house, while surveillance footage confirmed Ashcroft personally met cartel envoys. The 52 skeletons found behind his home were not accidents. They were loose ends. It was no longer the scandal of a corrupt politician. It was the collapse of a criminal kingdom built inside the state itself. At 4:58 a.m., barely 2 hours after the raid on Ashcroft's mansion ended, the FBI command center lit up with new intelligence. Dozens of cartel convoys, alerted by Ashcroft's arrest, were fleeing their safe houses, attempting to move drugs, weapons, and human cargo before federal teams could seize them. By 5:12 a.m., the order was issued nationwide. All units, initiate the highway siege. 5:27 a.m., Houston corridor erupts. On Interstate 10, a blacked-out SUV packed with fentanyl attempted to break through a DPS checkpoint, accelerating past 140 miles per hour. Helicopters thundered overhead as ground units boxed the vehicle against a concrete barrier. The driver, a 16-year-old, bailed out and ran across the median, only to be tracked instantly by thermal optics. Inside the SUV, agents found 68 pounds of narcotics and 5 migrants gasping for air, stuffed beneath a false floorboard. 5:41 a.m., San Antonio Freight Yard. At a massive warehouse complex tied to Ashcroft's shell companies, DEA fast operators breached both loading bays simultaneously. Dozens of armed smugglers attempted to escape through catwalks and storage aisles, but federal teams moved with surgical precision. Within minutes, they secured 14 tons of packaged cargo, including meth, fentanyl powder, forged IDs, and routing maps showing hundreds of upcoming transport cycles. One agent described the scene as a distribution center for human misery. 6:03 a.m., Laredo Highway standoff. On the U.S.-Mexico border route, a convoy of 3 tractor trailers attempted to flee southbound. When DPS troopers deployed spike strips, the lead truck jackknifed, scattering crates across all lanes. Agents stormed in, expecting to find drugs. Instead, they found 57 people locked inside cargo crates, dehydrated and moments from organ failure due to heat buildup. Many whispered the same words: "We were told we would die if the police came." 6:26 a.m., El Paso Nightfall Warehouse. A shootout ignited when cartel gunmen fortified inside a reinforced safe house opened fire on U.S. Marshals. The firefight lasted 9 minutes, bullets shredding drywall and ricocheting off metal beams. When smoke cleared, every gunman was down, and agents recovered a hidden server room containing Ashcroft's encrypted communications, proof of his direct coordination with CJNG leadership. 7:02 a.m. Statewide sweep reaches its peak. Reports poured in from every region. 310 cartel operatives arrested. Over 200 captives rescued. 3.2 tons of narcotics seized. 80 underage American drivers recovered from cartel control. Not a single U.S. officer was killed. 7:48 a.m. The declaration. In the Federal Command Center, the FBI director addressed all units nationwide. Ashcroft's network is dismantled. His empire is gone. Today, Texas takes back its highways. What began as a series of chaotic chases had transformed into one of the largest coordinated federal crackdowns in modern U.S. history. By sunrise, the war that Ashcroft helped unleash had ended, and the state he betrayed stood victorious. By 8:32 a.m., just as federal teams were finishing the statewide sweep, a separate crisis began unfolding inside the FBI's Texas field office. Analysts reviewing Ashcroft's seized servers discovered something far more disturbing than drug ledgers or payout lists. Buried beneath layers of encrypted directories was a network labeled The Shield. It wasn't cartel slang. It was a protection system, one built to keep Ashcroft's empire invisible. The files revealed that over the past 8 years, at least 17 federal investigations tied to human trafficking, illicit transport, and political corruption had been quietly derailed before reaching the lieutenant governor's name. Case numbers abruptly closed without explanation. Leads marked high priority suddenly reassigned. Officers requesting warrants reassigned to distant posts within weeks. None of it was coincidence. At 9:14 a.m., investigators identified the first co-conspirator, a transportation magnate whose company operated 312 long-haul trucks repeatedly spotted near cartel transfer points. His financial records showed recurring $75,000 consulting payments routed directly to Ashcroft's campaign accounts. A second name surfaced minutes later, a senior DPS logistics supervisor who had signed off on hundreds of falsified inspection reports for vehicles later seized with narcotics. But the most explosive discovery came when forensic analysts decrypted a series of VoIP messages encrypted with military-grade software. The recordings captured late-night conversations between Ashcroft and two high-ranking political donors, discussing clearing obstacles, protecting the pipeline, and burying liabilities. They weren't just passively supporting Ashcroft, they were actively shielding him from federal scrutiny. At 10:47 a.m., an unexpected visitor arrived at the FBI office, a mid-level administrative employee from Ashcroft's own staff. Hands shaking, she surrendered a 4-terabyte external drive she had secretly duplicated after noticing irregularities in the lieutenant governor's communications. On it were deleted emails, draft orders never sent, and internal directives instructing staff to stonewall federal inquiries. The most damning file was a document labeled Succession Strategy. It detailed plans to expand the trafficking network into 3 additional states within the next 18 months, projecting profits of $1.1 billion. The internal whistleblower revealed something worse, that Ashcroft planned to replace local law enforcement liaisons with individuals loyal to his network, effectively turning parts of the state into safe corridors for cartel cargo. The 52 bodies behind his estate weren't random victims. They were informants, defectors, and employees who had threatened the system. By 11:30 a.m., the FBI had enough evidence to classify the operation not merely as corruption, but as the existence of a parallel illicit government structure, one that manipulated elections, controlled transport channels, and rewrote administrative decisions to serve cartel interests. Ashcroft had not only betrayed his office, he had engineered a shadow authority capable of outmaneuvering legitimate institutions. The realization sent a chill through every agency involved. The firefights, the convoys, the smuggling routes, those were only the visible scars. The real danger was the machinery behind him, well-funded, deeply embedded, and still active. And for the first time, federal agents understood the magnitude of the war they were fighting. By 12:05 p.m., only hours after the final highway convoys were neutralized, the full scale of Ashcroft's collapse was unfolding across Texas. Federal agencies, FBI, DEA, DHS, and U.S. Marshals, shifted from combat operations to stabilization mode. Their new mission was clear: restore order, rescue survivors, and dismantle every remaining structure of Ashcroft's hidden empire. The first priority was the victims. More than 200 trafficked individuals, pulled from trucks, warehouses, and roadside stash sites, were transported to federal care centers in Houston, San Antonio, and El Paso. Many had been held in conditions so brutal that medical staff described them as days from irreversible organ failure. For some, it was their first moment of safety in years. For the youngest victims, children as little as 8 and 9 years old, federal child psychologists were brought in immediately. Their testimonies would soon reveal the true horror of Ashcroft's network. At 1:22 p.m., Texas Governor Elizabeth Crane declared a state integrity emergency, authorizing a sweeping audit of every transportation, procurement, and public safety contract signed under Ashcroft's watch. Within hours, investigators flagged 48 logistics companies suspected of laundering cartel payments or providing phantom transport services. Court orders froze their accounts, halting over $140 million in suspicious funds. Meanwhile, state legislators introduced an emergency motion known informally as the Ashcroft Bill, a bipartisan proposal that would impose a minimum 50-year federal sentence for any elected official aiding, abetting, or shielding transnational criminal organizations. The bill gained 117 sponsors in its first 4 hours, a record in Texas political history. But the work of repairing trust had only begun. Across the state, law enforcement agencies launched internal reviews to determine how deeply Ashcroft's influence had infiltrated their operations. 3 senior DPS officials were suspended pending investigation. A dozen permit offices were temporarily shut down after evidence surfaced that they issued fraudulent commercial licenses to cartel-connected drivers. At 2:46 p.m., federal agents entered Ashcroft's satellite office in downtown Austin, uncovering a data vault filled with voter analytics tools and influence maps. The files showed calculated efforts to place loyalists in key county positions, ensuring uninterrupted control of trafficking routes. The discovery sent shockwaves through the state's political establishment. Ashcroft hadn't just corrupted Texas's highways, he had attempted to reshape its government. But amid the revelations, there were signs of hope. By 3:30 p.m., traffic surveillance indicated a 72% drop in smuggling attempts across the state, an unprecedented decline occurring within just 48 hours of Ashcroft's arrest. For the first time in nearly a decade, the main transport corridors of Texas were quiet. Throughout the evening, rescued miners reunited with families. Others were placed under federal protection programs. Social media accounts used by the cartel to recruit teenage drivers were shut down. 112 TikTok networks and 64 Snapchat groups eliminated in a coordinated sweep. As the sun began to set over the Texas plains, the FBI director addressed the nation. This was not just a criminal takedown. This was a reclamation. Today, Texas has taken back its government, its roads, and its future. The war Ashcroft helped unleash had left scars, but it had also awakened a state determined never to let its institutions fall into darkness again.